It's no secret that houses have gotten expensive. I'd always expected I'd just buy one. But even if I had the money, I wouldn't want to pay $1 million for a house built in 1964. Me and my brother are building the ultimate tiny house. Not for $50,000, not for $20,000, but for $6,000.
Something has been shifting quietly across the American vehicle dwelling population, and in 2026, it has gone one step further than the last shift this channel documented. A growing number of experienced full-time vehicle dwellers, the same homeless and near-homeless Americans who already abandoned their converted Sprinters and Ford Transits for ordinary used sedans, have started adding something behind those sedans. Cheap used cargo trailers, utility trailers with homemade plywood shelters bolted on top, small enclosed trailers that the community has started calling $500 tiny homes on wheels. And the people making this switch are not 25-year-old adventurers between tech jobs. They are retirees whose Social Security checks stopped covering rent, veterans on fixed disability payments, and workers in their 60s who ran out of cheaper options. The tiny house television shows selling $40,000 custom builds have said nothing about it. The van life channels on YouTube have stayed silent, and the news outlets that periodically cover American vehicle dwelling as a growing housing crisis have missed it completely. But inside the population actually living that crisis, the trailer switch is real, it is accelerating, and it rests on a series of practical observations that anyone who has spent years sleeping in a vehicle can independently verify. Over the next few minutes, you are going to hear the 8 specific reasons behind the switch. None of them appear in mainstream tiny house content, and by the end of this video, you will understand exactly why. Every one of them contradicts what the tiny home builders, the van conversion companies, and the paid course industry have been telling their audiences for the past decade. Now, the first reason is the separation of the shelter from the engine. This is the observation that started the entire shift, and once you hear it, you cannot unhear it. When a person lives in a converted van and the engine fails, the home fails with it. A transmission failure on an aging Ford Transit does not just strand a vehicle. It strands a bedroom, a kitchen, a heater, and every possession the person owns, all of it held hostage in a repair shop parking lot against a bill that can run past $4,000. The vehicle-dwelling community has watched that exact sequence destroy people. The van breaks, the repair costs more than the person has, the shop charges storage fees, and within weeks the person has lost the vehicle, the home, and the possessions inside it, all in a single mechanical event. A trailer breaks that chain completely. A cheap used cargo trailer sitting on 2 axles has no engine, no transmission, no fuel system, and no computer. The tow vehicle can die completely, and the home is untouched. The person unhitches, sells the dead sedan for scrap, buys another $1,500 Corolla or an old pickup off Facebook Marketplace, and hitches the same home to the new vehicle the same afternoon. The tow vehicle becomes disposable and interchangeable. The home becomes permanent. For a population living one mechanical failure away from the sidewalk, that separation is not a lifestyle preference. It is the single most important structural change available to them, and it costs almost nothing to make. Now, the second reason is the collapse of the entry cost. A used 5x8 enclosed cargo trailer in rough but serviceable condition sells across most of the American used market in the range of a few $100s, and a bare utility trailer frame sells for even less. The community has learned that a sheet of plywood, framing lumber, foam board insulation, and a box of screws from any hardware store turns that frame into a locked, insulated, weatherproof sleeping shelter over a single weekend, built by a person with no carpentry background, following instructions passed around in Facebook groups. Compare that against the numbers the industry promotes. Professional tiny homes on wheels are marketed between $30,000 and $80,000. Converted camper vans are marketed between $15,000 and $50,000. Even the used camper trailer market, the old travel trailers sitting in rural driveways, carries hidden costs in water damage, rotted floors, and failed roof seals that the community has learned to avoid entirely. The cargo trailer build sidesteps all of it, and the low entry cost changes something deeper than the purchase math. It changes the consequence of loss. A person who loses a $15,000 van to impoundment, theft, or mechanical failure has lost years of savings they will never rebuild. A person who loses a $500 trailer build has lost something they can replace within a month. At the bottom of the American economy, the ability to absorb a loss and continue is worth more than any feature a professional conversion can offer. Now, the third reason is registration and insurance. A converted van registered and insured in the United States carries the full cost structure of a motor vehicle. And as covered previously on this channel, specialty conversion insurance can run into thousands of dollars per year, with policy language that quietly excludes full-time habitation. A small utility trailer sits in a completely different administrative category. In most states, trailer registration costs a small flat fee per year, and in several states, a one-time permanent registration covers the trailer for life. There is no engine to insure. There is no separate liability policy required in most jurisdictions, because liability coverage typically extends from the tow vehicle's ordinary car insurance policy while the trailer is being towed. The person pays for one cheap sedan policy, the same $500 to $800 per year that any driver pays, and the home rides behind it administratively invisible. The community that has been through van insurance audits, coverage denials, and premium increases has done this math in detail. The trailer arrangement removes an entire category of annual expense, and it removes the specific trap that has burned van dwellers repeatedly: the claim denied after the insurer determines the vehicle was being lived in. No insurance company asks whether anyone sleeps in a cargo trailer because the paperwork does not contemplate the possibility. The system that penalizes visible vehicle habitation simply has no checkbox for a plywood bedroom on a utility frame, and the population has learned to live inside that blind spot. Now, the fourth reason is the municipal ordinance category gap, and this is the reason the community discusses most carefully in its private groups. Over the past 5 years, cities across the American West have enacted vehicle habitation ordinances, oversized vehicle restrictions, and RV parking bans. Portland, Los Angeles, Denver, Seattle, San Diego, and dozens of smaller cities. Almost every one of those ordinances is written around two legal categories: motor vehicles and recreational vehicles. A small utility trailer with a homemade shelter on it frequently fits cleanly into neither. It is not a motor vehicle because it has no motor. In many municipal codes, it is not a recreational vehicle either because it was never manufactured or registered as one. It is, on paper, cargo. Enforcement officers working from ordinance language written to remove sprinters and motorhomes encounter a parked work trailer and find that the code they are enforcing does not clearly apply to it. The community is careful about this point, and this video will be careful too. The gap is not universal. Cities amend their codes constantly, and a trailer that is obviously being lived in on a public street will eventually draw the same complaints a van draws. But the practical pattern reported across the community is consistent. The trailer attracts less enforcement, fits into legal gray zones the van does not, and buys its owner something the van never could, which is time. Time to work, time to save, and time to find a way back indoors. The pattern reported from cities like Los Angeles and Seattle illustrates it clearly. Municipal enforcement responds to citizen complaints, and citizens complain about what they recognize. A converted Sprinter with roof vents and solar panels is recognized instantly as a residence, and the complaint gets filed the first week. A dusty enclosed trailer sitting behind a hitched sedan is recognized as somebody's work equipment, and no complaint is ever filed at all. The enforcement machine that cities spent 5 years building to remove vans was aimed at a silhouette, and the community simply stopped matching the silhouette. Now, the fifth reason is drop and drive mobility, and this is where the trailer stops being a cheaper van and becomes something genuinely different. A van dweller's home goes everywhere the van goes. To work, to the grocery store, through every parking enforcement zone in the city, visible at all times. A trailer dweller can unhitch. The home gets parked in a monthly storage yard on the edge of town, in an RV storage lot, on a relative's rural land, or on any private parcel where the owner has given permission, and monthly outdoor storage yard rates in most American markets run somewhere between $50 and $150. The person then drives an ordinary, empty, unremarkable sedan into the city for work, for appointments, for daily life, sleeping in the trailer at the storage location at night, or splitting time between the two. Think about what that actually solves. The entire enforcement problem this channel described in the van video, the complaints, the tickets, the 3 a.m. knock on the window, exists because the home is visible in public space. The trailer arrangement takes the home out of public space entirely and puts it behind a chain-link fence where it is just one more parked trailer among hundreds. The daily driver that circulates through the city carries no evidence of habitation at all. The community describes this as the single biggest quality of life change of the entire switch. The home stops being a moving target. And in cold weather regions, the arrangement carries one more advantage the community talks about constantly. A stationary trailer in a storage yard can be insulated properly with thick foam board walls and a small, safe heating setup, in a way a moving van never can, because the trailer does not have to remain drivable, aerodynamic, or inconspicuous in traffic. The van dweller idles an engine all night in January to stay warm and burns fuel money doing it. The trailer dweller sleeps inside 4 inches of insulation that cost $60 at a hardware store, in a shelter that has not moved in a month and does not need to. Before we get to the 6th reason, one practical note. A video like this can only describe the pattern, the specifics, the exact build material list, the state-by-state trailer registration rules, the storage yard vetting checklist the community actually uses, run far longer than any video allows. So they have been written down instead, in a guide called The Veteran's Blueprint. The link is in the description below this video. If you are already sleeping in a vehicle or trying to help someone who is, that guide is the practical half of what you are watching right now. Now, the 6th reason. The 6th reason is the near elimination of catastrophic mechanical risk. Go back to the failure list that ends van dwelling arrangements. Transmission failures over $4,000. Diesel engine repairs over $8,000. Electrical faults in complex conversion systems that no ordinary mechanic wants to touch. A basic utility trailer has a failure list you can count on one hand. Tires, wheel bearings, axle, hitch coupler, and lights. Every item on that list is cheap, and every item on that list is repairable in a parking lot by an amateur with a floor jack, a 4-way wrench, and a tub of bearing grease spread out on a pickup tailgate. A trailer tire costs a fraction of what any van repair costs. Wheel bearings cost less than a tank of diesel, and repacking them is a job the community teaches newcomers in an afternoon at a folding table in a Walmart parking lot. There is no engine to fail because there is no engine. There is no transmission, no fuel pump, no alternator, no check engine light. The homemade shelter on top follows the same logic. When a professionally converted van develops a leak, the repair involves proprietary panels, hidden wiring, and specialized labor. When a plywood trailer shelter develops a leak, the repair involves a $10 tube of roof sealant and a screwdriver. The community that has lost homes to repair bills has restructured its entire housing arrangement around one principle. Nothing in the home should be able to fail in a way the owner cannot personally fix for pocket money. The trailer is the only vehicle dwelling format that actually satisfies that principle. Now, the seventh reason is contractor camouflage. The van video described how organized theft crews read a converted Sprinter as a mobile pawn shop, a rolling advertisement for laptops, batteries, and tools. The trailer sits at the opposite end of that signaling spectrum, and the community has learned to push it even further. Now, the seventh reason is contractor camouflage. The van video described how organized theft crews read a converted Sprinter as a mobile pawn shop, a rolling advertisement for laptops, batteries, and tools. The trailer sits at the opposite end of that signaling spectrum, and the community has learned to push it even further. A plain white or gray enclosed cargo trailer, the kind sold by the tens of thousands across the country, reads to every passing observer as a landscaper's equipment trailer, a contractor's job site trailer, a painter's supply hauler. It is one of the most common and least interesting objects on any American street or storage lot. Neighbors do not photograph it. Security guards do not report it. And theft crews evaluating a storage yard under the orange sodium lights at 3 in the morning see a work trailer that might hold used lawn equipment parked among 100 identical work trailers, rather than a residence that certainly holds electronics. The community layers cheap security on top of that invisibility. A hardened hitch coupler lock and a bright yellow wheel boot together cost less than a single night in a motel, and they turn the trailer from an easy tow-away target into a bolted-down problem no opportunistic thief wants. Is trailer theft real in America? It is, and the community does not pretend otherwise. But the pattern reported from inside the population is consistent with the insurance loss data on vans. The visibly converted vehicle gets targeted. The anonymous work trailer gets ignored. Anonymity at the bottom of the economy is armor. Now, the eighth reason is resale speed, and this is the reason that matters most at the exact moment life changes. The van video documented converted vans taking 2 to 6 months to sell, with owners taking heavy losses under time pressure. Used utility and cargo trailers occupy one of the fastest moving corners of the entire American secondhand market. Landscapers, contractors, farmers, and haulers buy them constantly, year-round in every region of the country. Community reports consistently describe a clean used trailer photographed in a driveway and posted to Facebook Marketplace selling within days, often within hours, at or near asking price, with pickup trucks lining up before the listing is a day old because the buyer pool is enormous and the product is simple to evaluate. There is no conversion to explain, no habitation history to disclose, no complex systems for a buyer to distrust. A person living in a trailer build who suddenly gets the phone call, the apartment approval, the room offered by family, the medical emergency, the job in another state, can strip the plywood interior in an afternoon, sell the trailer by the weekend, and walk away with most of their money recovered. The van dweller in the same situation is trapped negotiating with lowball buyers for months while the opportunity expires. The community frames it plainly. The trailer is cheap to enter and fast to exit. And for people whose entire goal is to get back indoors, the exit matters more than anything else about the arrangement. Now step back and look at what those 8 reasons combined actually produce. The population of experienced American vehicle dwellers has concluded that the entire commercial narrative around mobile living, the $40,000 tiny homes on television, the $15,000 van conversions on YouTube, the professionally built camper trailers in dealer lots is optimized for a customer who has money and wants an adventure, while the person who has no money and needs shelter was never the intended customer at all. The narrative assumes the buyer can absorb a catastrophic loss. The population cannot. The narrative assumes the engine and the home should be one object. The population has learned that fusing them is the single most dangerous design decision in vehicle dwelling. The narrative assumes visibility is a lifestyle statement. The population has learned that visibility is what gets you ticketed, towed, robbed, and moved along. So the population built its own answer out of a used trailer frame, hardware store lumber, and foam board insulation for less than the cost of 1 month's rent in most American cities. And the reason no major channel has told you this is the same reason no major channel told you about the van to sedan switch. The tiny house media ecosystem is funded by builders selling 5-figure trailers, by RV manufacturers, by conversion companies, and by course sellers whose entire addressable market disappears the moment the audience learns that the community's actual solution costs $500 and a weekend of work. And there is one more thing worth naming about who is actually making this switch, something the beginning of this video only hinted at. Community reports describe retirees whose Social Security checks stopped covering rent years ago, widows and widowers who lost a household's second income, veterans on fixed disability payments, and workers in their 60s who were laid off a few years short of the retirement they had planned for their entire lives. These are people who owned homes once, people who paid into the system for 40 years. The trailer they are building this weekend is not their first housing plan. It is their last one, arrived at after every other option the system promised them quietly disappeared. And behind all of it sits the same imbalance this channel keeps documenting. Federal and state budgets find billions every year for stadium construction, corporate tax preferences, and overseas commitments, while the housing programs meant to shelter the people sleeping in vehicles across the American West operate on a fraction of what the job would actually require. The person bolting a plywood bedroom onto a utility trailer this weekend gave up on the tiny house dream a long time ago. They are engineering their own shelter because the housing system that was supposed to provide it has failed, and because the industry that was supposed to advise them was selling to them instead. The $500 trailer parked behind a storage yard fence tonight is not a symbol of minimalist freedom. It is a symbol of a population that stopped waiting for help and built the cheapest, most repairable, most invisible shelter American commerce would allow. If this reached you tonight, subscribe. This channel keeps documenting what the population at the bottom of the American housing market is actually doing, months before the industry or the news media admits it is happening, and the next report is already in progress. The Veterans Blueprint remains linked in the description for anyone who needs the specifics tonight. Because the people still pouring their savings into engines that will eventually fail deserve to hear all of this before the failure decides for them.